Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Cash Out. Let's get straight into the storyline. The story begins with the action of a professional robber named Mason and his girlfriend Amy, who go to attend a party held by a famous American businessman. Mason's arrival was not just to attend a party, but to steal a luxury car owned by a businessman. Mason has planned the action very carefully by assigning his team to be part of the party. His team members, namely Sean and Anton, disguise themselves as waiters who would provide services to each invited guest. In addition, other members, namely Hector, will be the party security officer, and another is a beautiful hacker named Link, who will help to hack all the surveillance systems at the party venue. After the robbery is complete, Mason and Amy plan to live on a private island and spend time together there.
La nostra isola privata.
Oh, sì, quella col molo per pescare.
But suddenly, they are approached by a businessman named Perez, who will be the target of Mason's robbery. Mason was very happy to finally meet Perez in person and thanked him for inviting him to the party. Perez immediately invited Mason to see his private jet collection, but Mason said that he was more interested in Perez's car collection. Hearing that, Perez was quite surprised because it turned out that Mason knew about his secret car collection. Because he had flown from a far place, Perez finally invited Mason to see his private car collection.
Puoi dirlo forte.
Sonna signora, questa è solo una piccola selezione. Sì, questo è il prototipo della SVJ.
Not long after, Mason and Amy finally got to see Perez's car collection. Without suspicion, Perez explained each car and its price. However, Amy, who already knew about it, easily mentioned the brand and type of each car. Perez was very impressed with Amy for being able to know details about the brand and type of car he collected. Then, Perez showed one of his most expensive and rare car collections, the Pagani. Of course, Mason and Amy were surprised to see it. Perez said that the Arabian oil king once offered the car for $20 million. Out of curiosity, Mason asked Perez if all of his cars had ever been tested, and Perez replied that he only starts them once in a while and never uses them because the price would decrease. Unexpectedly, Perez offered Mason and Amy a chance to try the car and start it. Without thinking, Mason and Amy accepted the offer, making the theft even easier. For the first time, Mason and Amy sat in the car and immediately contacted Link. It appeared that Link was already set up with a computer and was about to start the action.
Via le luci a partire.
Mason immediately starts the car and is very impressed with the sound of the car engine. Seeing this, Perez asked Mason to turn off the car immediately. Mason and his team immediately stepped on the gas and drove away with the super luxury car they had stolen. To avoid police pursuit, the thieves put the stolen car into a car carrier. In the car, Mason flirts with Amy, but seeing Amy's gaze, Mason feels like Amy is hiding something. Suddenly, Link informed Mason that there were troops ahead and a helicopter following. Mason was shocked and suspected that the FBI had intercepted him because their actions should not be known by anyone. Seeing Mason panicking, Amy tried to talk. Still, Mason instead said that Anton would soon handle all the obstacles properly. It wasn't long before the FBI arrived and followed the thieves from behind. Anton immediately stepped on the gas to get away from the FBI's pursuit, then crashed into all the cars that blocked them. Mason continued to wonder how the FBI knew about their theft. In the panic, Amy suddenly pointed a gun. Apparently, Amy is an FBI agent who has been infiltrating Mason's group for 2 years and certainly intends to arrest Mason and his group for being the most wanted robbers and thieves. Mason was in disbelief and did not expect that Amy had betrayed him. Because he was pressed, Mason finally decided to carry out another plan, to throw the car into a lake that was close to them.
Piano B! Piano B, giusto.
Va bene, ma credo che dovrai premere il grilletto perché non abbandono la mia squadra.
Anton was very upset because, from the beginning, their theft had been very smooth, but it finally had to end this way. Shortly afterward, Anton desperately throws the car he's driving into the lake so they can escape the FBI.
L'intero mi fa schifo, cazzo!
Andiamo, Mason, dobbiamo scappare!
Mason explained that Amy had betrayed him and joined the FBI to catch him. Sean was furious about what Amy had done to his brother. It is known that Sean is Mason's younger brother. 3 months later, Mason decided to stop being a robber and chose to enjoy a quiet life while spending time fishing. Suddenly, Sean came to visit Mason because he was worried that something had happened after Amy had betrayed him. Mason said that Sean shouldn't worry too much about him because right now, Mason is fine and is enjoying a quiet life without having to think about running away from the FBI. Sean's arrival turned out not only to visit his brother, but also to invite him back so that Mason would commit a robbery. Instantly, Mason refused the invitation because he did not want the same fate as his father, who died in prison after being arrested by the police. Then Sean explained that Anton and Link were in trouble and they needed money to solve all their problems. However, because Mason was adamant and did not want to go back, Sean finally left a mobile phone for Mason so that if he changed his mind one day, Mason could contact him directly. Elsewhere, Amy is seen in a meeting with her superior, Richter, discussing the FBI's failure to capture Mason's group. Richter was upset that Amy failed to catch Mason, even though she was very close to being caught. Plus, there were no bodies in the lake at all, and it was confirmed that Mason and his group were still on the loose. After that, Richter tells her that Mason's team is planning a bank robbery and asks Amy to investigate. Meanwhile, Mason, who was sleeping, was suddenly called by Link and told that Sean would commit a bank robbery. Although Mason had decided not to rob anymore, but because his younger brother did it, he was worried because he knew that Sean was always careless. Without thinking, Mason got ready and left to join the team. Meanwhile, Sean meets a bank manager named Karis, who is having lunch at a cafe. Sean says that he is going to rob the bank where Karis works and needs his help to make the robbery go smoothly. Karis laughs and assumes that Sean is joking. Sean showed the gun he was holding and threatened to shoot Karis and the bank customers because his team was already inside the bank. Karis was forced to obey Sean's orders. When going into the bank, Mason suddenly approached Sean and asked him to hide the gun he was holding.
Intorno, nascondi la pistola. Lui chi è?
Mason asked if Sean had any other plans for the robbery, and Sean said that he had no other plans at all because what he was doing now was very well planned.
Piano B.
Non serve il piano B se il piano A è ottimo.
D'accordo, fermo, facciamo così.
Feeling doubtful, Mason asks Sean and Karis to wait outside, and then Mason will go inside the bank to pick up the team. Not long after, Mason finally entered the bank and saw that Anton, Hector, and Link were already there. Mason immediately scolds Link for letting Sean go this far.
Devi essere più convincente.
Primo non l'ho incoraggiato nemmeno per un attimo e secondo spetta a te fermarti.
Sean, annoyed at being told to wait outside, decides to go inside the bank. When he asks Karis to enter the safe room, the alarm suddenly sounds because Karis covers his finger with liquid. The door does not open, and the warning sign is lit. Since the situation was out of control, Mason and the team immediately attacked the security and secured everyone in the bank.
Sul pavimento.
Mason immediately led the team and divided the tasks so that the robbery could be carried out smoothly. Luckily, the shots from security only hit Sean's arm. Then Sean and Mason immediately threatened to shoot Karis if he did not obey his orders.
2, 1.
Che succede?
After all the surveillance cameras were turned off and everyone was secured, Sean and Mason requested that Karis take him to the bank vault. Mason continues to scold Sean for disobeying his orders and instead doing something stupid by entering the bank. Mason immediately asked what Sean's purpose was to rob the bank. Then Sean said that he was going to take a deposit box containing crypto wallets. Sean was looking for deposit box number 1140, but because Karis didn't know, he had a hard time finding it. Not long after, Karis finally managed to find the deposit box. Karis then explained that to open the deposit box, 2 keys are needed, the key from the bank and the key from the owner. Because he was careless, Sean didn't know that the deposit box had to be opened using 2 keys. Hearing this, Mason just shook his head because he couldn't imagine Sean committing a robbery without careful preparation. Mason immediately contacted Link and asked for help hacking the deposit box so that it could be opened.
Niente, servono 2 chiavi. Non voglio creare problemi.
Come procede?
Seeing Karis, who was very calm, Mason immediately asked if Karis had ever experienced a robbery. Karis replied that during his time as manager, there had been 4 robberies, and they always ended with the robbers being thrown into prison or shot dead. Mason then asked Sean what he would do to open the deposit box, as he didn't have the key from the owner. Sean explained that he had brought a gun kit and learned how to open the deposit box from YouTube.
E ho saputo di questa punta di cobalto che può perforare quasi tutto. Il mio stetoscopio, gli occhiali, il C4, le solite cose.
Su YouTube?
Al giorno d'oggi tutta la tua cronologia.
Not long after, Link finally managed to hack the deposit box, and Sean immediately looked for the item he was after. However, the USB containing $600 million worth of crypto was not there, which upset Sean.
Cazzo, non capisco!
In addition to the police, it turned out that the robbery was also handled by the FBI, led by Amy. The police chief, Fabrizio, immediately confronted Amy because, according to him, the resolution of the robbery case was under his leadership. However, since the robbery was committed by Mason, who was the most wanted criminal, Amy explained that she was the negotiator. Hearing this, Fabrizio can only be silent because Amy already knows who the bank robber is, while the police have not identified him at all.
Buongiorno.
Since the wanted item was not found, Mason asked where Sean knew about the deposit box and the name of the owner. Sean explained that he had done extensive research before committing the robbery, and the deposit box's owner was a rich socialite named Isabel.
Isabel Ferro.
Mason immediately asked Link to find out who Isabel was. Cleverly, Mason suspected that the deposit box was just a decoy, and they were being set up.
È una trappola.
While Link was looking into Isabel's background, Amy suddenly called her and asked to speak to Mason. Amy, who was very familiar with Mason, said that this robbery wasn't what Mason was used to. Link said that it was Sean who had planned this robbery.
Non sembra una cosa da Mason.
È di Sean.
Devo andare.
Se si muove, sparagli.
Ciao, Mason.
After betraying during the car theft, Amy and Mason never met again after that incident. It appears that Mason is still very much in love with Amy, even though he now has to confront her again. Amy explains that a few weeks ago, the FBI heard talk of Sean going on a robbery spree. But since he's been in that situation many times, Mason seems very relaxed and even happy that Amy is the negotiator. Mason confirmed that there were 24 hostages in the bank. Then, Mason requested that the police and FBI secure a minimum distance of 15 meters from the bank. Amy was very surprised because it was quite a new thing for Mason to do. But for fear of something happening to the hostages, Amy finally ordered the police and FBI to stay 15 meters away from the bank.
Spara, farò del mio meglio.
Vorrei 15 metri.
Seeing that the police were ready with their guns, Mason didn't look worried at all, and instead asked Link to immediately find the riddle behind Isabel's deposit box.
Va bene, prenditi tutto il tempo che ti serve.
Mason also orders Anton and Hector to take the hostages to a room where they can be more comfortable.
Amicizia, rilassatevi. Consideratela una pausa dai vostri 1000 impegni.
Because Link had hacked into all the surveillance cameras, the FBI had a very difficult time getting video of the situation inside the bank. Mason then contacted Amy, who asked to provide food and drinks for the hostages. Mason also requested that Amy directly deliver his request.
Cosa vuoi?
Vorrei 2 dozzine di pizze. Devi fare tu la consegna. Da sola.
Feeling still confused about solving the puzzle behind Isabel's deposit box, Link asks Sean to look for any items contained in the deposit box. Sean finally finds a photo of Isabel with a number on it and gives it to Link. On the other hand, Amy is seen carrying the food Mason asked for.
Oh, eccola, sta arrivando.
Finally, after a long absence, Mason and Amy meet again. Mason immediately apologizes for telling Amy to deliver the food directly, because that was the only way they could meet. After fulfilling Mason's request, Amy requested that Mason release 2 hostages and then 1 hostage every hour. Mason has no objections and will comply with her wishes. Mason tells Amy that after committing this robbery, he will go to a private island to enjoy the proceeds. Mason tries to tease Amy again by mentioning that on the private island, there is a garden like Amy wants. Immediately, Amy asks Mason to stop talking because Amy has been fitted with a listening device. Amy asked Mason to turn himself in because she feared what might happen. However, Mason, who understood all the risks, said he wanted to save Sean and the team because Mason had retired.
Bisogno dei miei 2 ostaggi.
E io ho bisogno delle mie pizze.
Isabelli, su, calda o fredda mangiate. Masticate.
After that, Mason immediately brought 2 hostages to be released. Not long after, Link reported that the code she had just obtained had successfully unlocked Isabel's data. Link immediately praised Sean and asked him to look for deposit box number 2134 immediately. However, Sean explained that all deposit boxes start from number 1. Hearing this, Mason immediately approached Sean to talk directly to Karas. Sean continues to look for all the items in the deposit box to get a clue again. But because of his carelessness, Sean instead left the gun until it was taken by Karas, who immediately beat him. Seeing this, Link immediately told Mason that Karas had attacked Sean and ran away. Seeing Sean lying down, Mason immediately woke him and rushed to find Karas. Link directs Mason and Sean to immediately catch Karas. Then, Sean apologized for constantly upsetting Mason. Finally, when Karas was about to leave the roof door, Link immediately locked the door and trapped Karas. Karas tried to point a gun at Mason, but Karas was too afraid to do so. Karas was forced to tell Mason that the number found was not the number of a deposit box, but the entry code to the secret building next to the bank. Don't know what Karas is hiding, but he looks very scared. Mason said he only wanted Isabel's crypto and would not hurt Karas.
Quando scoprirà quello che state facendo, ucciderà tutti in questo edificio per proteggere quel conto.
Finally, Karas explained that Mason sought something valuable belonging to the most ruthless mafia, Seltzer. From there, it was discovered that Isabel was Seltzer's mistress who kept all his big secrets. Suddenly, Mason's face immediately changed because Seltzer was a powerful mafia, even funding an operation and successfully coup d'etat the government.
Se mi sbaglio siamo morti. Ma se ho ragione...
Meanwhile, Amy is met by a lawyer named Mr. Flowers, who says the robbery has worried his client. Amy tries to ask who Mr. Flowers works for, but Mr. Flowers says that Amy's boss knows who his client is. Mr. Flowers threatens that Amy will lose her position if she does not immediately attack the robbers.
Nessuno uscirà dall'edificio con qualcosa che non è di sua proprietà.
Before leaving, Mr. Flowers told Amy to contact her boss immediately before regretting it. Mason immediately called Amy with anger because he suspected Amy had framed his younger brother for the robbery and deliberately made them face the most ruthless mafia. Hearing that, Amy was shocked because she had no idea there was a deposit box belonging to Seltzer in the bank.
Ok, devo richiamarti.
Amy immediately scolded Richter for using her to trap Sean. Then, Amy immediately asked what was in the deposit box and why it was not immediately confiscated. Richter said that the deposit box contained important data, and at this time, Seltzer had bribed CIA officials to carry out military operations to attack the robbers. Instantly, Amy is worried because Mason and the team are in danger, and their lives are certainly at risk. Mason, Sean, and Karas went to the next building through a special route to find Seltzer's secrets. Then, they have to destroy a wall to get to their destination. When they were about to destroy the last wall, they got stuck because it turned out that the building was fitted with thick plates. However, since Sean was carrying a full set of equipment, Mason immediately asked him to destroy the barrier.
È questo il muro? Sì.
Come procede?
Procedete uno alla volta, con calma.
Suddenly, Amy contacts Mason, telling him that the handling of the robbery has been taken over by military special operations and will immediately storm the bank if Mason does not surrender. Mason asks Amy to contact all the media to get the word out that the special forces are holding back the attack because the hostages are still inside the bank.
Ma ho comunque bisogno di un po' di tempo, non posso farti promesse.
Amy tried to negotiate with the head of special operations, Commander Cyrus, to hold off the attack because the robbers would release all the hostages. But Commander Cyrus didn't care because the handling of the case was already under his leadership, and he would solve it within an hour. Cyrus immediately asked Mason to release all the hostages, and the robbers followed him from behind. Mason said he had managed to get Seltzer's big secret, so Cyrus threatened to storm the bank soon. Calmly, Mason said he was not afraid of Cyrus's threats because the media covered the incident. After successfully breaking through the wall and destroying the plate, Mason, Sean, and Karas finally arrive at a secret place. Mason was very proud of Sean for successfully taking him to uncover a big secret. Then Mason immediately asked Karis to bring Seltzer's belongings, which turned out to be a hard drive. Mason immediately ordered Link to upload all the files. Meanwhile, Anton and Hector are seen lining up all the hostages and asking them to get out of the bank immediately.
Arrivando! Forza ragazzi, andate!
Veloci!
Chiudiamo in bellezza! Ecco gli...
Mason asks Amy if his team is caught. He wants them to be placed in an FBI prison because Mason will not turn himself in. Amy is very sad to hear that, because the special forces will storm the bank and finish Mason off. Before hanging up, Mason reminds Amy to return to his team and wishes her well. Finally, Karis was the last hostage to be released. Then Mason asks that all the teams take turns coming out to surrender themselves. Hector was the first to leave, followed by Anton.
Inizia a camminare all'indietro. Ginocchio. Giù in ginocchio.
Before leaving, Sean apologizes to Mason for involving him in this mess. He says that Mason is the only family Sean has after their father left.
Tienile alte. Faccia verso... Continua a camminare. Giù in ginocchio.
Afterward, Mason approached Link and asked how long Seltzer's files would take to be uploaded.
Dov'è Mason?
È ancora dentro.
Realizing that Mason and Link hadn't come out yet, Cyrus was furious because it was a distraction strategy, so the special forces wouldn't attack them directly. Cyrus immediately ordered all troops to prepare to attack and enter the bank. The special forces began to enter the bank and immediately looked for Mason.
Minatori all'appello! Trovateli!
Finally, they managed to find Mason, who was seen holding a bomb trigger. Mason asked the special forces to bring Mr. Flowers because he had something to say. Then, a huge explosion occurred in the building next to the bank. Suddenly, Amy was sad because she thought that Mason had died. The next day, Richter calls Amy to tell her that Seltzer's secret was not found. Apparently, nobody was found at the scene of the explosion. Richter tries to ask if there is something Amy is hiding because Mason has not been found until today. But Amy decided to quit the FBI without thinking. Richter had previously set her up and made her very dilemma because she had put Mason in danger. Sometime later, Amy received a message from Mason inviting her to meet on a private island. It makes Amy very happy because Mason is still alive. After a long absence, Amy finally met Mason again and thanked him for taking her to the place she dreamed of. Feeling curious, Amy immediately asked how Mason could escape the explosion at the bank.
Okay?
Apparently, Mason negotiated with Mr. Flowers so that Seltzer's data would not be published. Mason requested that all of his team be released and get new identities. In addition, Mason also requested that Mr. Flowers give him $10 million for each robber and $1 million for one hostage. Because there was no other choice, Mr. Flowers inevitably granted Mason's requests. And after that, Mason faked his death by blowing up the place.